Workshop topics, making some changes, part 2. A quick look around my workshop, rearranging things before the Myford ML7R lathe arrives, looking at a very old modern right spirit level. The kitchen unit and worktop is finally levelled and the lathe is put in place. I also fit some excellent metal drawers under the worktop, exactly the same as the ones I have at the other side. Recently I've been having a lot of trouble with sciatica and a lot of back pain. My first wife offered to help me with the job, and to be honest I was very grateful, but it was a bit of an uphill struggle. No one had ever explained to Fran the fundamental principle of a screw thread. There is a simple rule, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. It's not as easy as it seems. Fran was getting very confused between anti-clockwise and clockwise. Which way do you turn the feet to lift the unit, and which way do you turn the feet to reduce the height of the unit? As the levelling process continued, it became quite difficult to rotate the feet underneath the cabinet to level the unit. I even got down on the floor to do the job, but the pain from my sciatica was reaching critical mass. Later in the evening, I suddenly had a brainwave. My large Backo spanner, or Backo spanner as it should be pronounced, which is screwed to the wall as an ornament, was unscrewed from its usual place on the wall, and I used it to tighten and slacken the feet as required. This thing on the wall was bought about 3 Christmases ago for me for Christmas by my ex-wife Fran, who knows me only too well. I am a bit obsessive, and I do admit it. When I start to do a job, I continue until the job is finished. I've done a bit of teaching in my time, but I'm not too good at that because I don't suffer fools gladly, and believe me, I've actually tried to teach quite a lot of fools to do useful things. It all comes from being a musician and practicing piano many years ago. It was the repetition and the fact that if I made a mistake I went right back to the beginning every time that finally turned me into quite a competent musician. I bought this glass cabinet with the railway diorama inside it a few years ago. It has a Royal Scot train inside it. I substituted the 2 diesels that came with it for a steam locomotive, a small 00 gauge electric one. I really hate this clock. I like the look of it, I don't like the sound it makes, so what I'm going to do is change the mechanism to stop the whirring and rattling noise that it makes. The large Backo spanner is back on the wall. I have an almost finished Stirling single 5-inch gauge locomotive on the bench. This I lifted onto the track, then I pushed it, complete with the track, all the way down the bench to the other end. This is quite an extensive refit of this workshop, and it will be much better to work in it when it's finished. I'll still be working in the main workshop for certain things, but for general bench work, this workshop is excellent. It's warm and next to the kitchen, so I can make copious amounts of tea. I have 3 of these really useful drawer units. 2 of them are upstairs and this one's in the workshop. There's a place for everything and everything in its place. This is also a Christmas present. It's a green man, and I really like this. It's a very soothing image to look at. And to be honest, it does look a little bit like me. This end of the workshop is starting to have less in it, which is a good thing. I couldn't stand the whirring of this clock any longer, so I dismantled it and removed the clock mechanism. And then I fitted a new clock mechanism, and now it's silent. I didn't do the job in one go. Temporarily I put it back on the wall without a mechanism in it. In the workshop it's really important to have spaces to store things, and in the main workshop I'd gone past the storage capacity, so things were laid about all over the place on the shelves and on the bench. Very soon, with the help of a couple of friends of mine, the ML7R lathe arrived in the workshop. The lathe is not bolted to the worktop. It sits on some foam kneeling pads, good quality ones. These have been in the previous workshop and will be perfect for the job in this one. And just for the record, I'm taking no correspondence telling me, oh, you need to level the lathe and this, that and the other. This is nonsense. These pads are self-leveling, the lathe is perfectly accurate, and it makes less noise. I made a short series when I refurbished this lathe, and when I placed it in position on the foam kneeling pads, I couldn't believe how many people commented. I will make the final comment on this to preempt anyone else writing in. The lathe is level because it's not twisted. You level lathes to take any twist out of the bed which would cause turning inaccuracies. And if you don't believe me, just have a think about this. There are many lathes in ships around the world, and they can never be level, can they? As long as the lathe bed is not twisted, everything's fine. These kneeling pads are self-adjusting as the weight of the lathe compresses them, and after a while the lathe sits perfectly well on these and you can turn with maximum accuracy. Here's a reversing system for the lathe, old but good. A contactor and a reversing switch. You throw the switch first, then you turn the lathe on for whichever direction you want it to go in. Simple and effective. Changing the speed of the lathe is not as simple as it was on the Backo. On a Myford ML7, you have to lift the lid and move the belt onto the different pulleys inside. This thing is a bit of a mini DRO, and to be honest, I bought a couple of them. I liked them at the time for about 15 minutes, and then I decided that they weren't very good at all. The one I bought for the Boxford broke whilst it was sat on the shelf. Here's a shot of the main drive pulley from the counter shaft to the headstock. I changed the original Myford belt for this special belt called a nut lock, which can be adjusted and removed quite easily. Here is the wonderful Myford tailstock in place. I mentioned it in the last episode. I really do love the design of this. I thought I'd show you this really good thing. It's a Moore & Wright spirit level. I've had it for many years and it's just been sat in a cupboard in the main workshop. I've never used it until now. When I was levelling the worktop and the kitchen unit, I used an electronic box which is very accurate and very digital. So I was surprised when I used this to find that the readings weren't identical. I wonder what it is. The answer was simple. The underside of this spirit level was not only dirty with bits of paint stuck to it, it was rusty at one end. When I cleaned off all the rust and the dirt, it gave a much better reading. This is definitely near enough for rock and roll and jazz. This spirit level really is good, and when you've finished using it, you can rotate the sleeve to protect the glass. As you can see from this clip, the ML7R lathe is in very good condition. This is a shot of the bed. I bought a Myford tool post and 4 holders because I didn't like the original one, which was a bit labour intensive to operate. Using the oil gun, I applied some oil to the oiling points on the tailstock. I also applied some oil to the felt pads at the front of the lathe saddle. This stuff is genuine Myford slideway oil, but to be honest it smells really bad. Well, not bad, it just smells oily. I think I'm going to use the normal Hallett Oils steam engine bearing lubricant that I use. It's very good and it doesn't smell as bad as this stuff. It's not really a problem, but my workshop, remember, is built onto the kitchen and I don't want to eat my dinner to an accompanying oil smell. A while back I bought a couple of metal drawers that fasten underneath the worktop, and I was so impressed with them I bought another 2, and here I'm fitting them in position at the other side. I bought them via Amazon, and if you're interested, they are £54 each and worth every penny. They're very strong and very well made. I've had this power fret saw for quite a long time. It's been sat in the main workshop and I never really used it for much. I'm also going to bring down another bandsaw that I have because I find them to be very useful. It's a Burgess bandsaw. It's very old but very good. I like to buy really good quality useful tools, and this very small screwdriver set is possibly the best thing I've bought all year. It wasn't very expensive and it really is good. In the other box is another socket set, and this is just one example of where to put things. I'm trying to decide which bit goes where. In the end, I had a change of mind and moved things around. Possibly a slight amount of insanity is going on here. But I finally got them in the right place in the drawer, which makes access to them very easy. The drawer at the other side, which is nearer the lathe, is going to contain lathe tools and associated equipment. It's not finished yet, but it's getting there, and everything is just about where I need it to be. I'm going to put the Stuart Victoria steam engine back on the bench to continue working on it. And that is it. My kitchen workshop is much improved. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.